So good morning, everyone. Sorry we're a few minutes late. You are welcome to the STEM Talk series powered by STEMmet Resources. This is an alternative platform to discuss career and skills development, tying in aspects of science, technology, engineering, and math to a variety of sectors and industries. And my name is Jadisola Adidiji, and I am the co-founder of STEMmet. And we are bridging the skills gap in education and preparing our students for the future workplace. So thank you for joining us. So today we have with us Mr. Remi Dada, and he's the founder and CEO of SpaceFinish, where he is leading the vision to transform workspaces across Africa. Prior to founding SpaceFinish, he was head of product marketing for Google and YouTube for Sub-Saharan Africa, where he led the team to successfully localize products like Google Search and YouTube for the African markets. Remy has spent the past half a decade leading the SpaceFinish team in developing some of Africa's most innovative and human-centered workspaces, like the first ever Google Developer Space in Africa, the PwC Experience Center, and Dela's Epic Tower, amongst others. Due to the impact of SpaceFinish projects, Remy has been recognized by international platforms like CNN, and he has also been profiled as one of Fast Company's most creative people in business. So you're welcome, Remy. Thank you so much for joining us. And for our attendees, please note he's in a completely different time zone and it's about 5 o'clock in the morning. So we're really honored that he's joined us today. So you're welcome, Remy.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So let's jump right into it. So you have a background in architecture. Are you able to tell us what maybe influenced that choice of career path at university? Let's start with that.
Yeah, definitely. So first, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can, very clearly.
Okay. So when I first started off back in high school, I was always leaning towards more so the science classes.
Okay.
Right. And I was always one that always found some creative outlets. Right. So it was either whether I was drawing or creating comic books, it's always been with me. Right. So when I started to look for what career choice I was going to do, it was very clear that it had to be something that was going to be creative. Now, when you're a young student and you go to university, you are placed with a couple of options in front of you. Architecture seemed to be the most creative career path for me. I liked the built environments. I liked the idea of creating solutions that would improve and enhance people's lives. So for me, it was a no-brainer. I got into it thinking it was going to be very easy. If I'd known it was going to be that difficult, maybe I would have gone a different route. But it allowed me to express my creativity. So no regrets.
Right, but you mentioned there that you were always a science student. So why did engineering not appeal to you? Talking in terms of creativity and problem solving, just for the benefits of maybe students in
yes.
audience.
So creativity comes in different ways, right? Some people thrive off creativity in solving problems. Other people like myself thrive off creativity in creating physical and tangible solutions that you can interact with and you can touch, whether it's graphics designing or architecture or even being a musician. You want to create something that impacts someone else. So there are two different modes of creativity. For me, it was the latter.
Okay, fantastic. So you did that and then you journeyed into tech. Can you tell us how that happened and what the draw was?
Well, so let me give you a long-winded answer. So after studying architecture, I ended up leaving architecture for a couple of years. Right. And this was in 2008 in the financial crisis that happened in the States. It was a very tough space to be in at that time. So I left architecture, vowed to never return to it again.
Oh, really? And then, out?
Yeah. And I always felt like I didn't really belong in architecture because it was seen from a very creative only without a business side
Mm.
to it. And I kind of felt like that was always missing. So to fill that void, I went to business school to get my MBA. And after getting my MBA, again, looking for another creative outlet, I went to marketing because marketing allowed me to express that, but now with more of a business context. And then I went to work with a tech company. I worked with Google for a couple of years in that capacity. And then somehow the universe brought everything back together again and converged. And while at Google, I got the opportunity to design spaces, right? So it all came back full circle. And somehow, some way, I found myself back again doing architecture, but now with a technology spin to it.
Mm. So when you were in Google doing marketing, how did they know you could design, or how did that conversation come about with you designing space there?
Well, so one thing I always tell people is, you see, in life, so life is like a stream. Opportunities flow past you, and sometimes you have to interrupt and dive in. When I was at Google, there was we were going through a space expansion, and they wanted to renovate the office space. I mean, I looked for different firms that were going to do it, and we couldn't find any local firm that could do it. And I took the initiative to let them know that, hey, look, by the way, I have this background in architecture, and I understand the kind of solutions that Google should be looking for. And to my surprise, they gave me that opportunity. And to credit to Google, they have this thing called the 20% rule, where you can take 20% of your time and dedicate it to anything outside of your core function within the organization. So for me, that was my 20% project, right? And at the time, it wasn't a big deal. It was just something that I was happy to just do.
Mhm.
But that snowballed into SpaceFinish.
Hmm. Well, you put yourself forward. I
Exactly.
think that's the
Yeah.
thing. Put yourself forward, digging into the background and the training that you had, even though it wasn't, obviously in the space with that training. So that's what I'm trying to get out here, that so your architecture that you had vowed never to go back into still reared its head while you were in your tech environment. So you thought you had left it, but it hadn't left you.
Yes, and so the other thing is, as we acquire skills in our careers, it's not very clear what that skill set is going to be used for
Mm.
looking forward. But in hindsight, you'll begin to realize that you have this mixed bag of skills. So for me, I had gathered this skill set. I didn't know I was going to use it again down the line. And when the opportunity came, I figured out how to put two and two together and take on the opportunity.
Mm. And I think for us, that's what we've always tried to promote through our venture and through the programs that we have for kids, acquisitions of skills, especially in this 21st century work environments, the emphasis on skills. Of course, knowledge is important, but honing on that. So are you able to just maybe talk about that and what you had picked up along the way, particularly since you went into the tech sector? Which influenced, I mean, there's a lot of tech influence in SpaceFinish. So you brought that, along with you into how, the mission and vision of SpaceFinish is, I dare say.
Yes. So for all the I guess I won't say kids, for the young men and women out there watching, right? You see, they always tell you that no knowledge is lost.
Mm.
When I was younger, I didn't quite appreciate that, but trust me, that's actually very, very true. Uh, there's so many different things that I've dabbled in, right? From architecture to graphic designing to music production
Oh,
to
really?
web development to being an actual musician myself to marketing to business, right? And you have all these skills. Sometimes the skills they remain dormant, but there is the opportunity that comes that challenges you where you begin to pull different parts of the skill sets together, right? And the first time I set to do that was when I was at Google, because not only was I working within a marketing capacity, my creative background allowed me to work very well with creative agencies. I could give proper feedback on creative briefs. I could help ideate some of the ideas for the marketing campaigns that most people sometimes will not be able to do with the general marketing marketing background. And then definitely when founding a company like SpaceFinish, everything comes together because on day one, as founder, you are CMO, CEO, CFO, and you have to do everything. So I ended up being someone that could handle, be a jack of all trades when it was really needed, right? And then if you look at the work that we do at SpaceFinish, obviously the creativity comes from just my background of trying to be very innovative, but also the marketing aspect comes from understanding the user. So we're creating spaces, understanding the user brief, understanding how people are going to actually use the space, right? And then the web development comes from the fact that I do the entire website myself. I didn't have to go outsource it. And when you start a business, yeah, when you start a business, it's very difficult because you need to raise money to spend on all these different things. But if you have the skill set, you end up saving yourself that money and doing things by yourself. So while I was able to gather some skill sets, there were definitely gaps in areas that I didn't have skill sets in. So things like finance, and that's one thing that I really wish that I had been able to gather some financial acumen, right? In just being able to manage your own finances. But at any point in time, you're going to, at the end of the day, step aside and allow the experts to come in. You know, it's okay to do it in the beginning, but after a while, bring in the experts and let the experts who are better than you in that particular field take over. So like right now, we have experts in all the different verticals who are pushing SpaceFinish.
So just on a final note in terms of your architecture, for the benefits of the parents on our platform here, you know, what push did you get personally that I spent all this money sending you to architecture school? What do you mean you're going to work at Google and YouTube? What's the meaning of that? How did you handle that from dealing with
So I don't think that came up when I was going to Google. I think it came up when I was being a rapper.
Oh, when you were being a rapper, okay.
Because Google has a strong brand, so it's like so everybody likes that. The support system that I've had growing up has been one where I've been allowed to do whatever I put my heart towards. So there wasn't really that pressure coming externally for me, but internally it was more so I can't believe I'm going to go back to architecture. Right. And one thing that a lot of young people need to understand is, you know, as young people, you see adults or grown folks and you see them and you think they have everything all figured out. You know, you see your idols and you say, man, this person has everything all figured out. But the fact of the matter is they don't. Everyone up to the age of 80 they're all still just figuring it out and winging it as they go. So knowing that should reduce the pressure on yourself. But also, as you go through these different stages, you would more or less grow into all these different opportunities, right? And that's what life and experience is about. And is how fast you can react to the obstacles that life throws to you.
Right. So how adaptable you are and how flexible you are, because those are skills in itself as well, in terms of what life throws at
Yes.
and being able to react and adapt accordingly. Okay, great. So let's go on to and talk about SpaceFinish. What I'll do now is I will share one of the videos from some of the work that you've done. And I'm sharing the video of the Venture Garden Group, a Nigerian company, an indigenous company that you designed for. So let me just do that quickly. Fantastic. Whoops, let me just come back here. That's awesome. So let's talk about SpaceFinish. It says that SpaceFinish is a design company reimagining spaces to improve your quality of life. So when we think of workspaces, talk us through that mindset of productivity, innovation, and collaboration, which is what your company, mantra is in terms of, providing solutions for your clients. So are you able to talk us through that, how spaces should or are improving our quality of life at work?
Yeah, so for SpaceFinish, our core vision is to design or build a better world for all humans to live and work in, right? And it's a very, very broad vision that casts a large umbrella that allows us to use the influence of design and build to improve how you live and how you work. It's that simple. Now, one of the things that when starting the business, I asked myself, what is one thing that Africans would appreciate? And what's one thing that Africans would pay a premium for? And for me, my own point of view, I think whenever you can get your, you can create an experience that allows people to feel like they just stepped outside of Nigeria for a short while, whether it's they stepped into a space and they feel like, man, right now I'm in America, I'm in the UK, I'm in Dubai.
Away from our reality.
Away from your reality. And that's what we do at SpaceFinish. Now the question is how frequent can we do that for you? Is it just in your office space? Is it when you travel to the airport? Is it when you get home? Right? And how can we extend that umbrella of services that we offer? So that's all we do, right? We help to optimize your life through the environments that you work in. Right now, we started our journey primarily focused on the workspace because we figured out that 80% of our time is spent in the office space, at least before the work from home COVID started, right? And we have gradually, so we feel like we've dominated that space where we are the leading brand as far as workspace goes. And we're now beginning to look at travel. So SpaceFinish is currently designing 2 international airports. Right.
Actually, can I just put in there and show them pictures of that? Because I wanted to
yes.
also see, I wanted you to, one second. I wanted you to kind of explain the concept of how you've evolved. I suppose you're still in there, in terms of workspace, and then also buildings in general. Because initially, the concept there was workspace and really redefining that for us. And it involves somewhat, I'm going to bring up the Port Harcourt pictures. Well, carry on anyway, when I figure that.
Yeah, so like you said, so we started off in one vertical, which is workspace, and we're beginning to see how else can encroach on different parts of your life, right? So we figured out you get to the office, you're in traffic on Temple Bridge, Okada has hit your car, you're stressed out, but you step into the office space and you feel like you've gotten a glimpse of that escape. Then you have to travel for a business meeting, and then you have to go through the nightmare that is the airports that we're all very familiar with. So now we're in a place where we can say we also influenced and improved that experience, right? So that's why we chose to look at aviation space. We're also in a place where we're talking to a lot of the airlines to help them redesign their lounges. So yes, and feel free to open it up.
So you can talk us through it. Can you see it?
Yes. So if you scroll down.
Actually, when I showed my daughter this picture, she said, "Is this Nigeria?"
That is the, see, so that's what I'm talking about, trying to get you out of Nigeria. I feel like, so last year I had a meeting with the teams at Facebook, and I was trying to explain to them that Africa has an infrastructure problem, that without the infrastructure being solved, a lot of the tech solutions they bring will not really be absorbed properly. So building the infrastructure is critical. So this is a real life picture. It's not 3D rendering. And it's a lot of artistic elements that went into the design. We tried to look for the local nuances that were critical for the travelers or for the region. So Port Harcourt has a lot of fishery and oil refinery, and it's very rich in oil. So all these different elements are seen in the design. So like you can see the paddles that are suspended, and you can see the fisherman that is casting in nets in suspended animation with fishes and a shark underneath him. So these are some of the things that we felt are exciting to show about Port Harcourt. Like as you travel through Port Harcourt as a foreigner, you should get a brief history in just that experience, right? With very, very creative art pieces. And you see the team at SpaceFinish, we are a group of designers, project managers, engineers, and all these ideas that you're seeing is sourced from a group of people within the organization. It's not coming from just one person, right? It's how the company comes together to create magic. And we have some very, very talented people that are making this idea come to reality within the company. So if you travel to Port Harcourt anytime, you would experience this. I'm curious to see what the experience would be like for you. But we are also about to kick off Lagos in Q4 this year. So hopefully we can bring yes, international airport.
Oh wow.
So hopefully we can bring some of this magic to Lagos also.
But I wanted to also ask you, so you talked about your team. So obviously there's a lot of sort of interdisciplinary collaboration going on there. And I bring that up because of STEM, which is a combination of science, technology, engineering, and math. And so you guys are reflecting the importance of that collaborative aspect for problem solving and designing a solution. And also see that, for example, with that Port Harcourt one, you are able to collaborate even with local artisans. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, and local artists.
Yeah.
So, see, when you design an airport, the airport is supposed to be an open space that allows you to get from point A to point B, right? So the question is, in a busy traveler's mind, what are some of the items that you can showcase? Because you're going to get like 5 seconds glimpse from people, really. So what are the things I can showcase that will capture their attention, or you can educate them, or I don't know, give them something to think about as a traveler? To do that, it was very critical that we had to have a very art-focused strategy. After working on the PwC project, we had spent a lot of time really getting very, very ingrained in the artisan sector in the country. And when it was time for the airport, I had these large art installations. We worked with different artists, and the design team conceptualized these things in-house at SpaceFinish. And the artists also went to go execute it, right? Which is a bit challenging for artists. Most artists would want to just be the ones that would, come up with the idea themselves. But because of the way the process of the business goes, we needed to have some creative concepts to even convince the airport to do it in the first place. So that's why the ideas and the conceptualization came internally from SpaceFinish.
So I had a question. You said at the beginning, your mindset going into SpaceFinish was to create spaces that people could work well and, be productive in. How are you able to market that? It's not seen as an essential service or product, rather. How are you able to convince people that workspace environment is beneficial to employees and for them to want to pay for that? Because, when we think of Nigeria and the various challenges we have daily, infrastructure, electricity, etc., why would I want to spend X, millions on a workspace? Let them just go out and make money for the business. How are you able to influence, I would say, the decision makers to even get a buy-in on your concepts?
Yeah. So for all the challenges that Nigeria has, there's a silver lining in the sense that we have a new age of entrepreneurs, CEOs, key decision makers within organizations who are now beginning to appreciate the long-term return on their investments when they invest in their people, right? So all the spaces that we started with in the inception of the company were very forward-thinking companies. It was the startups, it was the Andelas of the world. It was the companies that wanted to mirror what was happening in Silicon Valley because they understood that if I provide my employees with a space that inspires them, that allows them to collaborate better, that allows them to be more productive, it will actually impact my bottom line, right? And me being the CEO of the company, we never sold design. We never sold pretty colors to people. We sold the business metrics to CEOs and to CFOs. We sold how this space was going to help you with recruiting, how it's going to help you with retaining your staff, how it's going to reduce your iteration rates, right? How it's going to help you with your bottom line, how it's going to help you drive productivity, organization realignment, company cultural buy-in, right? And when you start to pitch things in that way, it becomes more justifiable from a business standpoint. And then the thing about Nigeria is nobody wants to carry last. So when you begin to see that SpaceFinish just created an amazing space for Stanbic Bank, for Wema Bank, the other banks are also going to want to play within that space. And when they begin to see that the spaces are actually impacting how people are working together and there are good products and solutions that are coming out of this space, it continues to reinforce that belief, right? So we started the journey in the private sector. We've now done a public sector project, right? And the public sector is the farthest away from trying to invest in anything creative, but people also have their motivations for wanting to do like an airport, right? It's about country pride. The one place that everyone is going to go through is the international airports, right? So those are some of the things that that we're able to accomplish. So the key message I'll just have for the audience, especially for the young men and women, is, it's very important to understand what you are selling and how you're selling, because sometimes what you're selling is not the way you think you should sell it. Because if we had come and said, hey, we're going to give you very cool colors, it's going to be very, very nice, they'll probably say, is it not colors you're drawing left and right? They'll probably ask you for 50 versions before they pay you a dime. So that is one of the important things that I would just want to make sure that is understood on the call.
So how you, the messaging and how you deliver your value proposition is very important as well. And obviously touching on the right things, as you said.
And who the audience is.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Knowing your audience well. Okay. So we're going to start touching on the Q&A. Quick question here. Would you consider designing school classrooms, education spaces?
That's a fantastic question. So we have designed our first education space for Wema. It's Wema Purple Academy. And it's more or less it reflects the future of learning. When you think about the future of learning, I could write a book as to why the education system here is so archaic, right? And how space can really influence how people learn in a more collaborative manner, in how you can have a dynamic space that can be broken apart and put together based on what has been taught. So we have this space we designed for Wema Bank. It hasn't been launched yet. That's why you haven't seen any of the materials up yet on any of our websites. It's our first step into education. So again, remember, we started from workspaces. We're beginning to encroach in other parts of people's lives. So yes, we have done that, and we'll probably continue to do that down the line.
Well, actually, I've been keeping an eye on you for the last 5 years, because I always imagined that you would design my education space. So I'll let you play around with the likes of Wema, etc. And then when I have the money, you will remember me and give me a good discount. Anyway, moving on swiftly. I have a question here. What advice would you give to a student who wants to go into art, but is not sure if they should get a background in a traditional, inverted commas, in a traditional career first?
So what I'll tell people is 50% of people that I know change their career path, right? And it's very weird when you think about it. You go to school and you study this one thing, you get to the real world and you then go chase something else. So I say that because you don't really control where you end up, right? You just acquire these different skill sets. But the very key thing is that you should chase something that you're passionate about. Passion is going to trump anything else. Regardless of what it is, you'll be financially okay if you have strong passion whenever you're learning. So the question was if they should go get a traditional
Yeah.
background first
Yeah.
before going to art school.
Yes, something like that. Yes.
Well, so I don't know what the journey is in education for arts, but I would say getting a formal education is a good safety net for you because you can get a job, right? But getting something like an apprenticeship where you can learn in a very hands-on environment is very critical because theoretical things, while they are great, you can't compare to the amount of information that you begin to take in when you're actually practicing it. So get your hands dirty and don't be afraid to do it.
So that takes me to my question of work experiences. Again, trying to draw that into the Nigerian context. You know, the opportunities for that, or just trying to drive home the importance of that. And I think I read somewhere you guys had some interns at some point, or you did some sort of program that students could participate in. Can you touch on that a bit?
So I think you might have been talking about Student Day. I'm sorry, Children's Day, where we brought in some kids to work with the design team and come up with design solutions. We are about to kick off an internship program because right now as an organization, we are beginning to also think long term as to the different talents that come into the company. So that program hasn't kicked off yet. But I guess your question was about, I talk about the importance of experience in this field.
Yes, and work experience generally in terms of skills acquisition.
So the one thing you would know about SpaceFinish is we are very unorthodox in how we do our recruiting, right? Because of my experience being an architect, after going through school for so many years, I think for the first 2 years, like in school, I was designing skyscrapers. And when I got my first job, I was designing doors for like 2 years. And I was supposed to design only doors, nothing else. Very uninspiring. So, and a lot of creativity and innovation has been sucked out of that industry. People are doing the most standard, the safest things possible. So SpaceFinish is a company that actually recruits and invests in young talents that have the raw ability, and we then give them massive responsibility.
Okay, more than
Right?
doors.
Massive responsibility, and you'll be surprised how these young people have risen to the occasion to do some amazing work, right? And I think the notion behind that is, I think because of we're a heavily creative company, I don't think we can teach creativity. I think that's something that's actually innately built in you. And when we find that raw talent, we bring them in and we take them through a very rigid onboarding process to help them acquire those skills. And obviously, we match them with more experienced designers or engineers or project managers, right? But I think experience is critical. And the beauty about this generation is you're growing up in a world where you have access to information, right? There was a time where you wanted to learn how to use something, you had to go to the library and you
Yeah.
had to go rent a book. But now you have YouTube videos, you have social platforms. So really leverage that because the level playing field is now as low as it's ever been, and the world is a lot smaller.
Fantastic. I had a question, obviously, with the COVID times and how work has changed, how we work has changed and will change. Do you see yourself influencing that in one way or the other, or how do you see yourself influencing that?
So this is the biggest question. How is COVID going to change the workspace? Anyone that tells you they know the answer is a liar because nobody knows.
Exactly. There's so many webinars on, COVID
Nobody knows.
or this and that.
If anyone knew, I don't know, within the next billion years, nobody knows. And that's one thing that you have to be okay with as an entrepreneur. You can't always have all the answers, right? But you can get insights, right? And use that insight to inform your decision-making process. So as a company who is trying to improve people's lifestyles, we have begun to invest heavily in health and safety processes, in just how we carry out our work in the first place. So our construction sites are very influenced by to be very pro-COVID health safety measures. Now, as far as the designs that we create, we are working with a startup called 54 Gene. I know that Abasi was on this program earlier on. We are building 54 Gene's office space, and they are a health solutions, health research company and organization. And we are thinking about health and safety as we are creating these solutions for them. We are working with other clients like a Facebook, and we are also thinking about health and safety in the design process and how it could influence what space they create. We've also retroactively gone to past projects and provide free solutions to clients like PricewaterhouseCoopers, and said, PwC, we gave you this space, but if you want to optimize it further for COVID, here's what you can do, right? So we're doing all those different things, and we are in a place where we're doing a lot of research to figure out what will the future really look like. And for us, we think it's going to be something that's very mixed, where people will have more flexibility in how they come to the workspace, right? There'll be more flexible work hours. There'll be more emphasis on collaborative time during work hours, and these things will influence how designs are going to be put together in the future.
Fantastic. I have a great question here, which talks about, to what extent do you integrate maintenance into your design strategy? So for instance, how do you ensure that an airport designed and built today can continue to look fresh in 10 years, which is key? You know, they say we don't have a maintenance culture in Nigeria. So the Port Harcourt airport looks beautiful. Is it international or local, by the way? Somebody was asking as well.
International.
International. Okay, so maintenance, which is a challenge that we have. How
so
is it integrated?
Maintenance is it's a pretty big problem in the country, and I think it's very endemic to a lot of infrastructure decay you see across the country. There's a notion of not appreciating the quality of work, hence not investing in maintaining it. And we could talk about that for hours. For SpaceFinish, we try to use the plane that's flying across. We try to use low maintenance materials in our designs. So whenever we design, we have a stress test process where we ensure that the materials that are being used is very easy to maintain. If you're going to suspend something up really high, does this need to be cleaned? Is this the right kind of material? Is it going to get dirty? How is moisture going to affect it? Can you easily wipe it off? And earlier on in our process, we were bringing in materials that was quite difficult for clients to maintain. And through our learning process, we've further optimized and try to give people the most rigid spaces. If you look at the most rugged spaces, so if you look at a place like Venture Garden Group, the floor is just concrete, you know, minimal maintenance, right? And I think that's until Nigeria really adopts a maintenance culture, it's always best to give them spaces that require minimal maintenance. That minimizes your creativity because you can't use every material in the world, but at least you want to make sure that your design is still being upheld many years from now.
Yeah, that's true actually. And I've been to VGG and it's absolutely awesome. I mean, if I don't know if you can't get inspired in a space like that and be productive in a space like that, I don't know what would inspire you. And I love the fact that, you know, these are Nigerian companies and these are young, forward-looking entrepreneurs who you know get what you're trying to do. Another question here: what opportunities are there for the underprivileged who may have the talent but not the degree? How do you find such talent?
That's a good question. So the biggest bane and the most difficult thing to do is finding talent. I'm sure everyone that owns a business can appreciate that. So what we are doing in that regards is SpaceFinish is currently a company that hasn't been able to meet its demand. Right. Last year alone, we had over 200 companies that reached out to us to do the office spaces. We obviously don't have the capacity to build 200 spaces because it takes so much work to just do one space. So what we are doing is we're trying to leverage technology to allow us to scale our services. And there are a lot of projects that would come in that would be on the smaller size of the budget scale. And from a business standpoint, it will make sense for us to take that on, right? So if you had two projects and one project was a 50M project, the other was a 400M project, there's a higher chance that as a business, you would skew towards the larger of the two. And the more we were doing that, the more we asked ourselves if we're being true to our vision. Because our vision is saying we are creating spaces for all humans, not just for the privileged ones. So we launched a platform called DesignMatchup.
DesignMatchup.
Now, yes, it's www.designmatchup.com.
Okay.
And we are matching up designers with paying clients, right? So for all the jobs that SpaceFinish will normally not do, for all the clients that can't afford SpaceFinish, and for all the designers that can be hired and employed by SpaceFinish, you can be hired as a freelancer. And to become a freelancer, you go through a series of automated testing that tests your cognitive, creative thinking, critical thinking, and design abilities. And if you pass the test, you get onboarded as a DesignMatchup freelancer, and then you pick on real, actual projects from clients, right? And it's automated. It happens online with a project management tool that the client has. And you know, it's currently in its beta phase, but we've done a couple of projects using this platform, right? And right now we have about 4 of them running concurrently. So I would say that is the first step that we're taking to try to ensure that we can get more people to participate and we can be more inclusive in this journey that we are pursuing.
And so this is wholly run by SpaceFinish, DesignMatchup?
So DesignMatchup, it's a SpaceFinish product.
Okay.
Right, but it's a self-sustained separate entity.
Sure.
That has different processes and provides so some of the key benefits of DesignMatchup is, number one, you can get quotations within minutes. Normally quotations will take you almost 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get, but with DesignMatchup you get quotations within minutes because we've done a lot of computer coding that allows you to speed up quotations fairly quickly. You'll get to choose which design solution you want to use based on the submissions from freelancers, right? And so far, smaller brands and SMEs like that solution because when you're starting up, it's very unrealistic that you're going to go hire a company like SpaceFinish and pay X millions. It does make sense to find a more practical solution for you.
And so it's a mixture of freelancers from design to architects to graphic designers, or?
So it's architects, building services engineers, and builders, right? It's purely a platform to service the built environment. So you get your architects, your electrical, mechanical, plumbing engineers, and you get your contractors who will end up building the space.
Fantastic. So, because I think we have a couple of budding architects, in attendance or artists. So I think that's really good to know. And also the fact that, it's a Nigerian-based or centered company. I think it's important, particularly for those students who are outside of the country. Because I know even getting work experience is not easy for minorities. With some of our students that are in universities abroad, those opportunities are not always freely available to them, and that's the truth of the matter.
And that's the beauty of the internet and the platform. You could be anywhere in the world, and you could pick up projects, right? Pick up projects, and in fact, on DesignMatchup, we pay people before they start working, which is a very big
brave.
Yeah, we pay freelancers before they start working. And the reason why we do that is because when we got into the industry, we felt like designers have really been heavily marginalized by the industry because of the lack of appreciation of intellectual property. So SpaceFinish would not design without being paid upfront. And obviously there's some projects that we didn't get as a result, but it's a principal thing. Anywhere else in the world, that's how I can't give you a design before I get paid because I'm doing the work for free, right? And a lot of young architects get bullied into doing that. So at DesignMatchup, you would get paid before you put pen to paper. And there's a myth going out there that is very difficult to get on. It's not true. You just need to just apply and do your best work and go through the process. And we do have a challenging acceptance rate. but that's because it's a very curated experience for the clients.
Right.
So if you're an amazing designer and you think you have what it takes, please go ahead and apply.
Oh, fantastic. This is great news. Okay, I have another question here, which is probably a dig at our parents in the audience. Do you think Nigerians are behind the mental thinking of children? I'm a child that wanted to do design and technology because that is what I was most passionate about. But now I can't offer it anymore because it is not a traditional subject. So design and tech. I suppose when you think of a professional course or degree, architecture is always the first of it. However, as there's so many different, tracks in design and creativity, as you mentioned. They're engineers, they're building services, they're, artists, etc. So, to our parents out there, or advice you would give a student who wants to do design and technology, um, what do you have to say to that for the old school parents?
So I'll say first, kids, give your parents some slack. It's not a Nigerian thing, it's a global thing,
Okay.
right? Our parents grew up in a generation where it was very prestigious to be a professional, right? You were a doctor, you were a lawyer, it guaranteed you a job. It was during a time where people didn't have the opportunity to get access to funds to fund your company. So there's a higher chance that you were going to get a professional job. It was going to provide you a good pension, a good salary to take care of your family. And it was a very respectable thing to do. Now, move past the baby boomers era, the world has changed. And the world has changed in a way where it's even difficult for me to keep up with all the different things that are happening, right? And all the traditional jobs that were very secure at some point in time are no longer secure. So now you have technology jobs that are just taking over everything because we are moving into a digital age. We've gone through the industrial age. Now we are now in a digital age. There are jobs that haven't even really been defined yet because they're so new. There are jobs that they are programming artificial intelligence, and we're not even really clear on what that can do in this world. So new jobs are being created every day, right? And what you want is you want your child to have a competitive advantage, and you want them to have an education that's very new age based in where the world is going to. So look at all the things that we really hold dear in Nigeria. They're going to get very obsolete. Things like oil and gas. We know renewable energy is the future, right? We shouldn't expect that Toyota is going to be making petrol cars for just Nigeria when the entire world has moved into electric cars, right? So these things are coming down, right? You guys, you use Google search every day. This is machine learning in progress. You might not see it, but every time you use it, it's what has the right algorithm to predict human behavior. So kids who are yearning to go towards creative solutions are really thinking along the right path, because everyone's job is going to be replaced by machines. They've already been replaced. But what machines are not going to be able to do is creative solutions, right? So if you want to protect your career, is best to go into either having a job that allows you to speak in the language that machines understand, that is just computer programming, or allows you to leverage on the one core competency that human beings have, which is creative thinking. So I would strongly advise you to move in that direction. And if you don't have access to that information, again, research, internet, all the information is at your fingertips. And for students who are schooling in Nigeria and are in schools that are behind the education wave, you can also look to organizations like Facebook or Google that are offering all these classes and all these certificates, right? Because we have too many graduates coming out with skills that are no longer applicable today and that businesses don't want anymore, right? And when I was at Google, I was working with, so my colleague was leading an initiative where they were training over 10 million people with digital skills. And the reason why these companies are investing heavily, because they know these are the skills that are needed in the future. So all the things that parents might look down on kids, social media, being a social media, a digital marketer is a highly sought out role today. Being able to program is highly sought out. Being able to be creative, be a graphic designer is highly sought out. So these are the new roles for the future, and organizations are paying top dollar for it.
So basically, future-proof skills and
Future-proof, yeah.
careers. And I was reading recently a report that was put out by Microsoft talking about their global digital skills initiative, and it was talking about the top 10, skills that they identified in their research, and also that they found growth in terms of the job availability. And it touched on software engineering, graphics design, even customer relationship marketing, CRM, and really the summary of it actually centers around creativity and creative thinking. And I think for us, as an organization, that's really what we've been trying to push for the last 6 years, that look, we have to move beyond the theory to more practical and give our children and revamp our educational sector to develop kids that can think, to develop creative thinkers, because they're the ones that are going to be coming up with solutions to problems, regardless of the sector. It's cross, sectoral in one way or the other. And what COVID has done, it's accelerated that. The transformation, that maybe was happening, which was fast in itself, has been accelerated in just 5 or 6 months alone, showing the skills gap. And so, for us, I think it almost justifies what we've been trying to say all this while, which sounded a bit maybe fluffy to some, that skills development is key. Having adaptable skills that really nobody's in a career for 30 years anymore, that can be transferable to different sectors. And you're not going to be, you may have, one of our speakers the last time said, most people will have 3 careers in their lifetime, but it's the skills that they're carrying from place to place. So as we round up on a final note, I just wondered if you could just maybe touch on maybe one key learning to you personally and professionally in this COVID-19 era that you have taken away, or maybe you are still developing around lessons learned, because we're all learning different things in this era.
Well, so one of the key things that I learned personally during this process is sometimes the right thing to do is nothing. So when everyone is really looking for how to react to an external force, sometimes doing nothing gives you perspective. It allows you to see things that you won't see if you've been overly busy, right? And for SpaceFinish, we went through that process where we were able to observe, we were able to analyze our numbers, we were able to be very introspective and not really do anything. And that allowed us to gain insights that we probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. At SpaceFinish, we learned during this period that SpaceFinish is a major furniture manufacturing company. We didn't quite know that prior. It was until we started to look at our numbers that we really understood those sort of things, right? Another thing that I also learned is just how to lead in a crisis, in managing people, and having that sense of empathy, right? I was very put off by a lot of knee-jerk reactions from large organizations laying off employees. It means that companies like Disney, the multi-billion-dollar companies that can take the hits for decades to come, and a lot of them, the first reaction was because of shareholder, stakeholders, was layoff, right? And I understand that sometimes that needs to happen, but for me, what I learned from that is when you're in a place like Nigeria, where talent is so difficult to find, and you've invested a lot in talent, sometimes having that empathy and putting yourselves in people's shoes allows you to find alternate solutions. And for us, during the COVID period, obviously, during the lockdown, all of our construction stopped. So obviously, our revenue was impacted during that period. Anyone in the business environment experienced the same thing. But the way we solved our problems was we we set a target, right? And we rallied together as a team and said, for us to hit our financial goals and to be sustainable as an organization, we collectively are in this together. And we collectively have to strive to hit these targets. And if we hit these targets, this is what the future is going to look like. If we don't hit these targets, here's how everyone within the organization is going to take a pay cut, right? And rallying the team that way, we 2x that target, right? And we surpassed that, right? During these very challenging periods. So those were some things that I learned during, and I'm still learning during this COVID period.
That's fantastic. So you're even realizing who you are as a company, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, and the fact that you may actually evolve into something different, it doesn't take away from your mission. It's just how that is perhaps delivered is somewhat different. So that's very interesting, because I think with the COVID now, there's that pressure to be, you know, do, but you stepping back to think and analyze who you are may actually, you know, yield some surprising results.
And it's different for different people. Some people you have to do. I'm not saying don't do, but sometimes it helps to step back and observe and gain insights before you act.
Fantastic. This has been awesome. And I thank you so much again for drawing you out of your sleep. But it's been a great insight for us, great information, great recommendation. I think really one of the biggest drawouts was this design matchup concept, which I'm sure will be very helpful to many you know, of our attendees, and we'll put the information out there also when we send out emails. So Mr. Remi Dada, CEO of SpaceFinish, an indigenous Nigerian company, we thank you so much for your time. We thank you for your insights, and we are wishing you all the best. Keep safe and keep well. And thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Bye for now. So for all our attendees, thank you for joining us. This has been the STEM Talk series powered by S.T.E.M Resources, and we are bridging the skills gap in education in Nigeria and raising up the next generation of creative thinkers. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.